variations exist. But that being said, it's really important for us to remember that whenever you and I encounter an apparent contradiction in the Bible, it's always going to be helpful for us to do a little research and get to the core of what the original transcript actually said. And that sometimes means that we're going to have to take a look at virtually every account of a specific statement or event in the scriptures. And when we do that, then we're reading the account in its proper context. Remember, any text that is taken out of its context is a pretext. I forget who first said that, but boy, that's such a great thing to remember. Any text that is taken out of its context is a pretext. Basically an effort or a strategy intended to conceal something or prove a point that's not really there. So never read a single Bible verse, as Greg Koukl would say at Stand to Reason, but always read the entire chapter and all the other accounts that are available to us in the Scriptures. Let me give you an example of this. Sometimes people will point to the mustard seed passage in Mark to argue that there's a contradiction or something inaccurate. Critics sometimes, biologists have even claimed that the Bible contains an error here in Mark, and that the error actually came from the lips of Jesus himself. So they refer to the statement that Jesus made related to the mustard seed in Mark 4:30 to 4:32. They'll say, quoting this passage where Jesus says, again he said, "What shall we say the kingdom of God is like? Or what parable shall we use to describe it? It's like a mustard seed, which is the smallest seed you plant in the ground. Yet when planted, it grows and becomes the largest of all garden plants, with such big branches that the birds of the air can perch in its shade." Well, critics look at that passage, and they jump all over the claim that the mustard seed's the smallest seed you plant in the ground. And so they're quick, basically to argue that the mustard seed is not the smallest seed on earth. In fact, they'll actually say that there are many seeds that are smaller than a mustard seed. So how can Jesus, Lord and God over all, not know that the mustard seed is not the smallest seed? Well, the critics, they aren't reading carefully here, are they? And they're not trying to understand what the original text is saying. Let's read it again. Well, you read it again. Jesus is talking to a group of people that are living in an agricultural, basically a society that is built on, much like we are an information society, and we understand the way we think is built on the fact we come from an information society, a highly technical society. The group that Jesus is talking to is a highly agricultural society. This is why he's using these types of examples to begin with. His listeners were farmers. He doesn't say that the mustard seed is the smallest seed on earth. He said that the mustard seed is the smallest seed you plant in the ground. Do you catch the difference? Mark 4:30 to 32. Again he said, "What shall we say the kingdom of God is like? Or what parable shall we use to describe it? It is like a mustard seed, which is the smallest seed you plant in the ground." That's what Jesus said. He's referring directly to the seeds that they were using in their day, in their location, the group that he's talking to. That's who he's talking to, and that's what he says. It's the smallest seed that you plant. And it grows and becomes the largest of all garden plants. Oh, wait a minute. He has a definition there. He says, yet when planted, it grows and becomes the largest of all garden plants. Now, if you're wondering if that's an accurate reading, the way I'm reading it to you now, because he's clearly saying it's not the smallest seed. He didn't make that claim. He's not saying it's going to grow into the biggest of all trees, the biggest of all plants. He's just saying the largest of all garden plants. And if you wonder if I'm kind of twisting that, let's look at a parallel account in another gospel. And this is what I'm talking about when I say it's important for us to read things in their context and to do the hard work of comparing the Bible verses so that you see exactly what it is that's being taught. Because in Matthew 13:31 to 32, it's written like this. He told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and planted in his field. Though it is the smallest of all your seeds, when it grows, it is the largest of garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and perch in its branches. You see, a careful reading with an effort to understand what the original text truly says is going to resolve the lion's share of apparent contradictions or errors in the Bible. I'm just asking you guys to read the scriptures carefully. And I've heard that mustard seed argument 1,000 times. And it's such a simple argument to refute if you simply and clearly read the Bible with that second rule that I've given you, which is find out what the original thing said.